I look, and there's a silhouette of Steven Tyler. And Steven Tyler walks in, he's like, who the hell are you, dude? It's Dorothy. It was
Dorothy,
actually from Illinois, but that guitar in 1952, early 52 Les Paul, had been in a tornado. I have never had a plan B, so it was like, dude, it's like, my guts are on the line, bro. I roll up, and Steve's like, what's up, man? And he's like, what are we jamming? And I was like, anything you want. And then we do this 25-minute long, like, back and forth thing, right? And I felt like I was in that Crossroads movie, dude.
Welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, brother. This is awesome.
Yeah, we're here in Nashville, Tennessee. We're at Carter Vintage Guitars. First time at Carter Vintage? Or you've been here before?
Okay, so this is my first time at the new location, and I'm actually embarrassed to say that. Because
yeah, it's been here for a minute.
For years, when I first moved to Nashville, it was 2019, I would go over to the other Carters, and I would bring like a 6-pack of beer and like almost like hang out and just, but my schedule's so crazy, and everyone goes, Jared, you got to get to the new Carters. Yeah. And I'm embarrassed to say that this was my first time here, but oh my goodness, I realized
it's kind of crazy.
What's going on, dude?
Yeah.
I'm in a room right now, and this is the back room.
Yeah.
Is this always closed? Or
this is open. So this is, typically we film in this back room.
Yeah.
Typically it's open. It's a showroom with some of the like,
gorgeous,
fancy gold tops and all the
the
goodies. Do you know what you're playing here? What does the tag say?
This tag, it said this was a 57 triple pickup custom. You know what? In a room like this is a absolutely beautiful guitar. In a room like this, it's almost like being in a casino. Not that I'm a big gambler, but
it's just the wandering eye.
You just go, it's like this whole crazy game, and this thing just stuck out kind of like a sore thumb for some reason. It was actually on the floor, on one of the floor stands, like one of those Hercules, and there's a few indications, you look at to see things, and you're like, oh, it's old. That's definitely old.
Yep.
But I saw the triple pickup, which is really not my style, but
quite the opposite, honestly.
Quite the opposite, but it called to me, and I just plugged it into this beautiful 58 Fender, and I was just, like I said, tickling the ivory on it, man. And holy cow!
Yeah,
what an instrument! Yeah.
What do you look for in a guitar? I know you built a custom shop.
Yeah. I look for a few things in a guitar. The first thing is, the main thing I look for in a guitar, no matter the price point, is, does it inspire me to play? Does it inspire me to do something different? Does it step me out of the box of saying, oh yeah, I play this way on all my guitars? Like, for instance, I recently picked up this really nasty old Silvertone. A friend of mine had it. Gave him $50 for it.
Nice.
Dude, the guitar only works in like one position. It's disgusting. It barely stays in tune, but it had this vibe where when you play it, you wanted to play like that, like kind of like that, like that bluesy. And it had this sound to it that was really snappy. And that guitar is maybe worth $50. That's just smashed up. But I look for guitars that inspire me in certain ways. There's certain things I look for in Les Pauls, which, like this guitar has it. A lot of people, they stay away from the triple pickup because of the inconvenience almost of that middle pickup. But I look for like the resonance. Like the first thing I'll do is I'll play a guitar with the volume all the way down, and I'll just like feel it. And even on this one, like on my elbow right now, I can feel it through my elbow, the vibrations, and it's like all through the neck. I just look for like, how does it ring? Play it kind of acoustically for a minute, see how that feels, and then I'll start to integrate the actual electronics. I'm not a stickler about like neck size or, I have to play through this or this. I've always been drawn to, P90 pickup guitars, but as of recent, like, great PAFs are great PAFs, I was even told by a lot of people that are really hip on this stuff that, a great PAF is basically like kind of like a souped up P90, which is a cool way to think about it. It's clear, it has clarity, it breathes. That's what I look for in guitars. I like guitars that are totally messed up. I like guitars that are player grade. I like guitars that have been refinished, broken. I think that the story makes it, especially on the old ones.
This podcast is really a labor of love, and the function is really to share the incredible stories and inspiration to help you along your journey as a musician. If you want to help the show, one of the best ways that you can do it is to click the subscribe button below, leave us a comment, or leave us a like. That helps tell YouTube to spread this to more people like you. Additionally, we've been thinking about cool ways that we can add more value to our community here. And our nerdy team over here has come up with a really cool new software tool for you. Basically, it's a slow down and looping tool for all of the platforms that you learn guitar on. It lives in your browser on top of YouTube and Instagram, and it allows you to slow things down, loop different sections so you can really focus and learn things from all of these videos. It's a super cool tool. I use it every single day myself, and we want to give it to you as the viewer for free. So all you need to do is click the link below, register for that, install it on your computer, and that is our gift to you. So with that, we'll get back into the episode.
Yeah, you got this crazy guitar. Can you talk about is it the New Orleans one?
It's a Dorothy. It was
Dorothy,
actually from Illinois, but that guitar, 1952, early 52 Les Paul, it had been in a tornado, and it had no neck when the guy found it.
Yeah.
Basically, it was given to me with all of the electronics were sorted. The neck was ripped off. Nothing from basically the body joint up, covered in like rocks and like broken glass. Absolutely, the back was just completely mauled. And a friend of mine, JW Restoration, Joel Wilkins, rest in peace, he took that guitar, he built a neck for it. We did this insane restoration on it. And in turn, it turned into like such a legendary, cool, storied guitar.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, friends of mine are like, collectors, I want that guitar. And I go, yeah, it's not for sale. I love this guitar. But they say, I want it for the story, which is really cool because, you know, a lot of these instruments, like this gold top back here we were looking at, man, gorgeous. I don't even want to be around some of these guitars because, like, they are so perfect.
Yeah.
And, like, the fact that a guitar that's 60 plus years old is still without a scratch on it. It's insane. But then you see these ones that have just been put through the ringer. It's like almost like I equate it to like a picture of me before I went on tour to now. It's like you've just been beat and brutalized, you know? And some of these guitars, it's like they have such a storied kind of look. And you just don't know what kind of wars they've been through.
Yeah.
And then the sound is, what I always find is the more beat up they are, the more inspiring I find the sound to be.
100%.
You know?
What are you touring with right now?
Right now I tour with a few different guitars. I have my Dorothy Les Paul. I still use the Gibson Epiphone Signatures, the single pickup Les Pauls.
Yep.
And then I got a really cool Gibson Carina Futura, which is essentially the predecessor to the Explorer. It's kind of that weird, crazy looking, it's a 1957 prototype that never went into production.
Wow.
And it's a crazy looking guitar. It's almost like someone like went on Photoshop and like twisted up the Explorer, made it skinnier in the middle. And it's a funky guitar. It's got a split headstock, so it has like the forky headstock.
Yeah.
It's weird, dude, but
Where'd
I
you
love
score
it.
that?
I got that from Gibson.
Yeah.
They weren't making them. They would make like custom shop runs of them, but I never found one. And I do a lot of stuff with Gibson. I love them. They take care of me so well. And I was with Cesar, and we were at a lunch, and he was showing me pictures of a Flying V, and behind him I saw a body of a Futura, and I was like, what's that? And he goes, oh, you know, I don't think we're going to release those, whatever. So I kept on him so hard. And then I was doing some events for Gibson, and I said, hey, man, I would love, you guys don't have to like pay me or whatever for this event. Like, I would just love to get one of those guitars. So I did some dates. I was out with, I did a date with Buddy Guy.
Yeah.
And I was at the sound check, and I got a message from one of my friends at Gibson. They said, hey, stop by tomorrow because the Futura's done at Gibson. So I went by and picked it up. It's killer, man. It's super cool.
You gonna try and convince him to do a run of them?
I would love to. I think that what's funny is, you know, with some guitars, like that guitar never really had a cult following. It never had anything. So now, even with me just playing it, it's like you go on like certain like forums and message boards, and people are bringing it up, and people are saying, oh, you know, people like to take stuff and run with it. Maybe they're making a run, or Jared's doing a run. But dude, I was playing that guitar for a week, and people over there were already talking about it. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. It's kind of like something like, you know, it's almost like a misfit toy that never saw the light of day.
Made the run, yeah.
And here we are, 57. I mean, how many years later are we talking? If it came out in next year, the next year, you know, it's 70 years.
Yeah. Seems like they got to do it.
I know.
Gibson,
I think so.
if you're watching,
come on,
just release it. There's demand. People want it.
Just release it.
Yeah.
But
That's awesome.
yeah, so I toured with that, and then As far as amplifiers go, I've had a great relationship with a company called Blackstar out of England. It's a bunch of ex-Marshall employees that started a brand about 15 years ago, and they've made me some signature models that I tour with. And I will tell you this, it's amazing to have the support of an amp company that wherever I go in the world and we tell them, hey, we're going to be in Slovenia, or we're going to be in the UK or Alabama, they could send amps. And I love the tone of them, and they're great, man. I mean, I got a lot of different stuff at home as far as guitars and stuff that I don't really bring on the road. Vintage Marshall, 68 Super Lead. Joe Bonamassa gave me the sickest Leslie West Sun Coliseum PA, which my biggest hero, Leslie West, that's exactly what he played through. So I have some really fun stuff at home, but like that stuff, man, it would not be practical to take on the road. It's huge. And it's very fragile.
Yeah. You don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Can I talk to you about your choices around specifically the single pickup? Like, what was the impetus for that?
Well, for that, I mean, like every player, I feel like I started out with basically, I had a Les Paul Classic that I worked up to that, and then I had my Boss DS1 and my overdrive and my wah-wah pedal. So I had like the rig that everybody had. And what I noticed was, so I'm a lefty. So when I'm writing, I write with my left hand. And when I started to play the guitar, I didn't really feel comfortable with a pick. So instead, I remember like he was trying to show me how to use the guitar pick. And instead I kept using my thumb. And I would just go like that, and when I wanted to play like a lead thing, I would just go. So I was using my thumb. Then I gradually developed this technique where I use my thumb, my index, my middle, and my ring, right? So I can kind of roll around with chords, So what was happening at this time was I would do these kind of things I was working on, and I would be on my neck pickup. And the biggest thing I noticed, it would sound like really mushy. Like I didn't have the control down yet. So if I played, it was almost like I was playing with the tone knob down. It was like that. And at that time, I wanted to hear it go like, really, to have that percussive attack. So I got into looking at like Les Paul Juniors, and I was like, well, that's kind of cool because it gives my fingers room under the strings, and I could really sit and almost dig in further. And there's such an attack on this bridge pickup that it makes me feel as if I can get all the tones I want out of that simply by adjusting the volume and the tone knob. So I was in real time doing that still with this pickup in, and then I got into, like I said before, Leslie West and Mountain. And anyone that's not hip on that, late 60s, kind of the answer to Cream from America, this dude, Leslie West, he was like 400 pounds. Played a Les Paul Jr. It was like he was like an animal with this guitar. But the way that he played is he had this really cool percussive attack. And this amp's really clean, but he had this kind of a. It was almost Clapton-y, but it had a lot more attack.
Some grizzle on it.
Grizzle, and then he would roll it back, and then he'd get the. Back up, and then he'd roll this off and do the, So it was a really cool sound, and I was getting into that.
That's cool.
So I ended up being crazy, and I just said, you know what, I'm just going to take the pickup out because I'm not using it. So I took the neck pickup out. I took the knobs out.
It's just weighing you down.
Dude, it's weighing it down. Get rid of it. We need more airflow.
Yeah.
And I took out the pickup selector, the pickup, and then the two knobs, and I had these two left, and I just pulled it up, So at this point, I was like getting my trio together, and I realized that I really love the freedom of that, because if I played a chord, and I would hit something, it just had this big open sound, and I didn't have to think that much about, switching tones. It was just, I would use my volume to kind of control it and a little bit of the tone. I remember people would be like, dude, your guitar is missing part, and I was like, yeah, it's supposed to be like that. It looks funny, man. I still have these guitars with the pickups
With
ripped out.
bucktooth, yeah.
Yeah, it was just so, almost DIY. It's like having a car that you're like working on without the hood on it all the time.
Some duct tape on the front. Yeah,
we got it.
Yeah.
And so I ended up having this kind of vibe in my playing. I ended up taking a Les Paul Custom, filling in the hole and like painting it and kind of making
What'd you
it
fill
look.
it with?
Oh, dude, I filled it with Bondo, like
Yeah.
Car Bondo. And then you just fill it and shape it out.
Yeah.
And I sprayed it. Still have that guitar. Looks horrible. But I started to play that on tour, and people started to go, man, what's up with this guy and this guitar? I got some dates. I was playing with Lynyrd Skynyrd, and Ricky Medlock, the guitar player for Skynyrd, he's like, I want that guitar. And I was like, well, it's my only guitar.
Yeah.
At the time, I didn't have any other guitars. And he goes, man, I'll trade you one of my Les Pauls for that Les Paul because he liked the way it sounded. I said, there's no way, dude. So we get back. He takes pictures of my guitar, sends them to Gibson. This was way before I was working with Gibson. And next thing you know, they're talking about making one for him. It was like a perfect storm, though, because at this point, I got off the road with Skynyrd, and I was going out with Zakk Wylde, who was Ozzy Osbourne's guitar player. And I'm with Zakk, and then Gibson is going, who's this kid playing this weird guitar? Now this guy, Ricky Medlock, wants it made. Like, how is this all happening? And then I go to the NAMM show, and I have the guitar, and it was like all the custom shop guys are walking around it. Rick Gembar, he's got this old school, he's like, oh, we got to make this guitar, And the funny part is, man, it's like, I didn't do anything special.
Yeah, they're like...
I just took the stuff off, but it was this black Les Paul custom style. And I feel like when you saw it, so sleek, with just the two knobs, a single pickup, and a tailpiece, it just had a cool look to it.
Yeah, it was just a vibe.
Just a vibe. And
Yeah.
it was almost like a murdered out car. And that's how that all started.
That's too funny.
I know,
love
it's
that
so
they're, like,
weird, man.
sampling the Bondo, like, how do they get that
Oh, dude,
impeccable tone?
At one point, so when I was living in Los Angeles, and I had such amazing friends working at the LA showroom for Gibson. This is before the new ownership. So this was like the Henry era. And there was so many guitars around that were just like in disrepair or broken necks. And I swear, I went in their back room. They had a tech room. And they were like, yeah, you can use whatever you want. Man, I would sit there for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours taking guitars and Frankensteining parts. And I still have all these guitars, but it was like the Wild West. I was just back there with a soldering iron, like, let me try this pickup, let me try this pickup. And it was a pretty amazing time. I didn't think about it a lot then, but now I'm like, man, I was lucky to have that formative time to really like zone in on what I liked about guitar and sound-wise, but also just to be like hands-on. So like when I look at a guitar, it's almost like when I look at a car, like an old car, and it's like I see the parts and like, I don't know, it's like your brain starts turning like, oh man, could I make it sound like this? I'm like a tinkerer, dude.
Yeah, we were walking around just before we were shooting. We were walking through, and you saw a guitar from a distance, and you were like, that's a 57. Like, you just kind of know instantaneously what.
It's like, I think a lot of like I would call myself like a guitar nerd. Like all of us, you start to find the things you like, and like for me, it was Les Paul's. So I was actually born in the town Les Paul's from, Waukesha, Wisconsin.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, my grandpa was a polka drummer. They knew each other way back in the day. And I knew the shape of a Les Paul before I even knew what it was for. But the funny part is, dude, it's just like old cars again, where it's like you can look at it and you can see it's like, oh, it has those bezels on the headlights. That's going to be a 68 or whatever. So with these Les Pauls especially, there's so many cool little quirks about them. And that's when I grabbed this one, I was like, I think it's a 57, because I don't see a lot of these triple pickups around. So it's like I could have played one of the gold tops, but I play those all the time.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So I had to pick this one up.
That's so cool. Man, I wish you would have come by. About 2-3 months ago, we had Les Paul's Les Paul, like the OG. And it was like Frankensteined out. It had the little microphone that he put on the top.
Was that the white one?
It's the black one.
Or the black one.
Yeah, and it had the two jacks on the bottom, one for an XLR.
Yeah.
Because he would sing into the thing.
It's insane.
It was a crazy machine, and they sold it. It was
Bro,
amazing.
can you imagine, like so that dude Les Paul, like back in the day, he was taking these guitars now that are holy grails and just chopping them up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's amazing.
Yeah. He invented a lot of other things too. Didn't he invent like
multi-track?
The DAW? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The joke is that he invented electricity.
Yeah. Well, what's cool about Les Paul, I feel like too, is like, you know, he's the reason for multi-tracking.
Yeah.
Speeding up the tape, playing parts, and then, you know, speeding them up. There's so many cool things. There's this really good book. I want to read it. My friend gave it to me. This comedian, Jeff Garland, who's all into guitars.
Yeah.
It's called The Birth of Loud.
Yeah.
It's about Leo Fender, Paul Bigsby, and Ted McCarty. And it was the three, you know, Fender, Bigsby, Gibson, late 40s, early 50s, when all this stuff was coming out.
Crazy.
And it was almost like a race to the moon almost.
Can you imagine being around? It's kind of like the AI race right now.
It really is.
Everything's changing so quickly.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a testament to what these things are, though, dude. It's crazy. So I have friends that are like, I would never pay such and such for a guitar. And they go, I would never pay 10 grand for a guitar. And I'm like, dude,
that's just to get in the door. Yeah.
That's just maybe cracking the door on one that's all busted up, you know.
Yeah.
But like this guitar, you know, this is going to be here a lot longer than me and you, brother.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
this thing will be enjoyed by a lot of people.
100%.
Yeah.
I want to hear about, can you walk us through the beats of your kind of like adolescence into your guitar career? Because you went from being, you know, just a, you know, bedroom guitar player to playing with all of your heroes. What were the like key moments along the way where things started to unlock for you and opportunities came your way?
That's a great question. So like I said, I won't bore you to death, but when I was 13 and 14, I remember seeing some of my friends start to get guitars. And at this time, I really wasn't into it. If I was going to play music, I wanted to be the drummer because I thought the drums were like way more exciting. I grew up in Wisconsin, right? I grew up in the farmland. My first job was baling hay, milking cows, you know, cleaning up, sweeping floors in a barn. Like that was my job. I never thought really past leaving my hometown or any of that. But I remember when I was 15, my brother's friend had a drum set, and I was like, oh, I'm going to borrow it. So they put it in the back of my brother's Jetta and brought it to our house. And I'm sitting there playing it in my basement with the radio turned all the way up. This would have been in like 2005. And my dad comes downstairs, and he was a construction worker. And he comes downstairs, and he looks at me, and he goes, nope, not happening.
You're not a drummer.
Dude, it was the one time in my life, like, he firmly said, like, no. You know what I mean? And I was like, why not? And he's like, I can't come home after like a 10-hour shift and listen to you try and play drums. And he wasn't a musician whatsoever, but he goes, why don't you get a guitar? Because it has a volume knob on it and you can take it with you.
Yeah.
And I was like, I guess I'll try it. I mean, I'm not really into guitars. I would rather play drums because, like, growing up as a kid, like, you know, my dad, he was of, like, that Vietnam era. So, like, he would tell us these insane stories about listening to, like, Mountain and Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix. I still have his old scrapbooks from back in the day, and it's them, you know, and the posters on the wall. It's like a poster of Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin, and it's, like, that whole era when all that music was happening. So he was hip on all that. He went and saw, like, you know, Hendrix and James Brown, but he was not a musician. The best advice he ever gave me is he goes, and if you play guitar, it doesn't have that many parts. You know, like a drummer, you got to carry all this stuff. And I was like, okay, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
so we
play
had
the flute.
Dude, we had this crappy acoustic with like everybody in the closet, 4 strings on it or whatever. And I said, well, I'm not going to play acoustic. I want to play electric if I'm going to do this. And he goes, well, if you learn how to play something on the acoustic, we'll go get you an electric guitar. Mm-hmm. So I remember within 5 minutes, dude, I was doing the one finger trick, the
classic. Yeah.
And he looks at me, he's like, huh, okay. So we went and got an electric. And I'll never forget when I went there, I was actually holding the guitar like this because I am lefty. And I was holding it like this, playing it. We get to the store, it was called Cashmere Music. And this kid's working there and he's like, hey bro, you got to flip the guitar, man. You know, you're holding it the wrong way. And I was like, huh? So he puts it in my hand like this, and then he gives me a guitar pick. And my first guitar was a Washburn X Series. It was like this shredder guitar. So I get it home, and I remember the first riff I taught myself was Black Sabbath.
With all the gain.
Yeah, all the gain.
Yeah.
And the stereo turned all the way up. So I'd wait for it to, and I'd hear the white noise, and I'd go try and match it, you know, boom, boom. And it was like that moment, man. it was like, oh boy. And I actually just found a picture. Like, my mom came to visit last week for the first time in forever, and she found a picture of the day I got my first Les Paul. And man, is it funny to see, because it's like all of us, a kid in his bedroom trying to figure it out. And that started me on the journey. But with guitar, it was the first time in my life that I ever did anything besides, like, even without sports or any of that stuff, where I picked it up and it felt natural. It was almost like I could look at the guitar even really early on and I go, okay, everything starts again here. So if I go, okay, well, that's that, that note's that note, and it all made sense. So I took a few guitar lessons, and I quickly realized, I was like, oh, I see how it's all made. I learned how to play like a, pentatonic scales. I figured out where chords were up and down the neck, and then I just started teaching myself. Now, the big turning point was after a few months of playing. All my parents' friends and everyone was going, oh, do you like blues? Do you like Stevie Ray Vaughan? And I was like, I don't know who that is. And they're like, well, he died right down the street from where you grew up. So I grew up next to Alpine Valley in East Troy, Wisconsin, where Stevie played his last show, and his helicopter crashed. I had no idea who he was, and then a friend of mine had Stevie Ray Vaughan live at the El Macambo on tape. His dad had it, which I don't know if you've ever seen that, but
yeah, it's insane.
It's insanity.
Yeah.
And I remember watching them and hearing him play that, all that stuff, and this guy is just up there sweating. He's like a boxer, and I was like, this is insane. How is he doing that? So all of a sudden, I went from being like learning how to play the White Stripes and like that stuff on the radio at the time, to seeing Stevie, and I was like, okay, this is like, I found the treasure chest, man. Like, whatever this guy's doing, this is what's up. And that led me down a rabbit hole, man. I mean, from that moment on, I started figuring out, all the blues stuff. So like, my mom at this time too, she started to take me to open jams. So I remember the first time I went to the open jam, man, we walked out and the guys were playing. And I got on stage against my, I did not want to. And like, they were like, it's in E. So I'm playing. And I see them, they went to an A chord. So I'm going, and then they go, take a solo. And I was so scared, my hands, I was like this. And I remember it started here. I went, and this whole thing, it was like a perfect storm. It just set me off. Like, I found the blues. I went to a blues jam. And then it was like, okay, cool, Stevie Ray Vaughan. Where did he get it from? It's like, oh, Albert King. Okay, okay, cool. What about, Albert Collins? Okay, what about, B.B. King? And it was all these guys, Freddie King. So I was worshiping all of these guys, man, learning all this stuff. And at that point, that's all I cared about with guitar. My mom goes, hey, when about a year later, she's like, there's this school called Berklee College of Music, and they have this 5-day summer camp. You should try it, And I was like, oh, that'd be cool. So I go there, and it was incredible, man. Like, I met all these friends, some friends I still have today. And at the end of this camp, they were like, hey, man, you're pretty good. Do you want to try out for a scholarship to the school? So at this point, I'm 17, and I was like, yeah, sure. So I remember I went in a room, and they were like, okay, can you play an E major scale? And I was like, yeah, I do cool, can you play an E major 7th chord? And I was like, can you play an E minor 7? And I was doing all this stuff. And then they had some music, and I really wasn't good at reading music, but it was something like a... And I read it, and I was like, whew, that's about as good as I ever got at that. And then they were like, oh, can you play, the same thing in a different place on the neck? So I played like... And then they're like, can you play us a piece? So I played Stevie Ray Vaughan by Lenny, or Lenny by Stevie Ray Vaughan. And I was playing this from... doing this thing, right? And I play through that, and then a few weeks later, I'm back at home in Wisconsin. Life's back to normal, playing my guitar around the house, and we got a letter. It's like, hey, you got a partial scholarship to go to Berklee. So I was like, I guess I'm going to Berklee. Yeah. Went there after high school, And I was there for a whole 6 months, man.
Sick.
Because when I went there, I thought that I was going to be like hitting the ground running, almost like the camp was, where it was like, oh, you're playing guitar all day. And, it was like, in my mind, that's all I cared about. When I got there, it was a college, right? So there was art classes, there was history, there was learning how to conduct an orchestra, writing counterpoint and harmony, keyboard basics. And I was like, I don't care about any of this stuff, but I'll hang in there because I love guitar so much. And I remember I went to one of the teachers, because I would just sit for hours every day in the little practice rooms. And he's like, hey, you having a good time so far? And I said, I am, but I want to like play more guitar and I want to focus on guitar. And he goes, well, if you just keep going, as you kind of get going in the college, you'll start to do more and more of that. And I remember I waited till that next semester, and then all the classes that I had, essentially they just went from level 1 to level 2. And I was like, man, I don't want to do this.
It's not it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, and this is no disrespect to anyone at Berklee or institution of music or any of that. It's just where I was at in my headspace.
Yeah.
No way, dude.
Yeah, you wanted to play.
I wanted to play.
Yeah.
I was looking at players like, I was up at night transcribing like, anything that I could get that had any sort of relevance of like, okay, cool, well, they told me that, Mike Stern or, any of these kind of players that are like a little bit more fusion-y, that's the stuff I should be listening to. So I was like, in between Hendrix and Stevie Ray, I was doing that. And it was like, I was just so gung-ho on playing guitar that I ended up leaving. Moved out to California. And I moved to Hollywood, and that's when things got real, because my parents said, hey, they helped me through Berklee, and when I was there, but they're like, if you're going to go to LA, you're going to need to get a job, and you're going to need to like figure it out. Because I knew, and like you said with your question about when I realized, things were starting to elevate, or, pivot moments were like when I moved to LA, and it was like, okay, cool, like my parents aren't going to help me out anymore. Like, how am I going to do this? And man, was it rough. It was
What'd
so
you do?
rough. Well, when I got there, I moved to Hollywood, and I found an apartment, and the apartment was $650 a month. Now, in between Berklee and going to LA, I was home for 8 months. And during that 8 months, my friend had a landscaping company, and I worked. And I saved up, I want to say I saved up like $6,000. I used like $1,000 to U-Haul from Wisconsin to LA with like a couch. I don't even know why I did that. Because looking back, it was like a couch, a guitar, my clothes, like nothing. So I end up burning through that money real quick. And then it was like I was calling home, and my parents were like, you got any gigs out there? How's it going? And I'm 21. I was like, no, I'm trying to figure it out. Man, I remember walking down Hollywood Boulevard trying to hear music coming from anywhere at night, and figuring out like, where do bands play? Like, and then I go to the Sunset Strip. It was like, I was just walking around LA, like, how do people do this? So this is where it all turned around. I moved to LA in August of 2010. And in November, I was at Guitar Center, and I saw a flyer, and it said the Les Paul Tribute Contest. And it said, put on by Musicians Institute, Guitar Player Magazine, D'Addario Strings, Gibson Guitars, presents the Les Paul Tribute Contest. The winner gets a featuring Guitar Player Magazine, a year's supply of D'Addario Strings, a brand new gold top, and blah, blah, blah. So like there was an email where you could send your submission tape. I didn't have a submission tape, man. And I was like, oh, shoot. This guy I was hanging out with, he's like, dude, I'll help you out. So we made this like demo track. And the demo track, I swear to you, it was one, I remember it was like one guitar playing like a slow blues. It was like started like, just like one of these, yeah? And then I played fake bass, bro, with the guitar. And then I soloed over the top of it, and I was, and I did that for about 3 minutes, and I was like, whew. Sent it over. This was in GarageBand. Yeah. Sent it over. 3 days later or something, I got an email. Hey, congrats, you're in the contest.
Nice.
Nice. Step 1 completed. So I go in for the contest. Now, at this point, I had Yeah, I have never had a plan B. So it was like, dude, it's like my guts are on the line, bro. Like whatever. So I show up and there's 30 people in this contest. I show up in the back and there's one guy back there going like, he was going, warming up, and he's just. And then there was like a classical kid playing, and then there was like a jazzer and like some rock dudes. And I was like, oh no, like it was almost like going to the Mr. Olympia and all the guys are working out backstage looking at each other. You're just like, where am I? What is going on? So they say draw numbers out of the hat. I draw 30. I'm the last guy to go up. And I was like, oh my God.
Can you see the other people who are playing?
I could hear them.
Okay.
I could hear them
It's
playing.
like a side room or something.
Yeah, it's like a little side room.
Yeah.
And as every single person went up, it was like this roller coaster of emotion, because you're sitting there. And let me say this, music is not a competition, ever,
Unless you're
ever.
explicitly in a
Unless
competition.
you're in competition. And then it's like, you better be good, man. So it kept going. There were some really great players, and I was getting freaked out. But the one thing I noticed is I was like, none of these players are like working the crowd. None of these players are like, everyone's just kind of going up there and being like, this is what I do, and then they leave. Yeah. And it was also a Les Paul tribute contest. So in my mind, I was like, okay, that's cool, but like, let's do a tribute to Les Paul, like the guy. Like, there's got to be something I could do, like maybe a melody or something, like to add into my playing. Maybe the judges would hear that, So I go up. And the first thing I do, this is online somewhere. It's definitely, they took video, and it was like, please welcome James Nichols. And like 3 people like clapped, and I was like, let's go. The first thing I did, I'm so nervous, dude. My heart's like, let's go. And then people started to clap or whatever. And then I played over the same backing track that I sent in, And I just remember showboating so hard, dude. Like, and then there was like a point where it like dips down, and I was like, I was doing all this and like getting down and into the crowd and stuff. And like some ladies like, woo, so like right away I had that going, and I kind of like would look at the judges, and they were just checking me out or whatever. And then at the end, the backing track stopped, and I remember going, what did I play? Like some like How High the Moon with some other thing, I just remember, and I did that. And one of the judges was like, he like caught it or something, got pulled up, won the contest, dude.
Sick.
Now I got a brand new Les Paul gold top, all this stuff, right? A feature in Guitar Player magazine. Like, I'm stoked. The best part, they said, hey, all of us judges are going to go out to eat after the event. Do you want to roll? And I'm like, yeah, I have no money. Like, I live on like ramen, straight up, dude. And I was real rough there for a bit. And we go out to eat, and I'm sitting and it's Paul Gilbert, Carl Verheyen from Supertramp, Michael Melenda from Guitar Player magazine, one of the Gibson HR people or ER people, and then this guy Phil, and Phil worked for D'Addario Strings. And I sat next to him, and he goes, hey man, you got a band? I was like, dude, I just moved here, not yet. And he's like, oh, that's cool. He's like, I own a studio. And I was like, really? I was like, that's cool. He's like, yeah, it's called Swing House Studios. You should come check it out sometime. I was like, yeah, dude. And then he goes, yeah, and we have a lot of different people in there right now. 30 Seconds to Mars is in there, and Foo Fighters, and Marilyn Manson. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Sounds legit. Next day, I'm calling him. Hey, man, can I check out your studio? So I go over there, and lo and behold, he's got a killer studio. Like, sound stages for rehearsing. He's got backline stuff, like production. He's got a recording studio. And I was like, okay, cool. And then he said, he was so cool to me. He goes, I'll tell you what, dude. He goes, you find some guys to play with when there's no one here, like off times, like, 11 p.m. on a Sunday or holidays or whatever, you can come in for free. And I was like, really? So I found 2 Swedish guys that I met in LA, drummer and a bass player. And I was like, dude, got a place for us to play. Yeah. So we roll over there, right? I was so nervous again, but it was like, we like looked at each other, we're like, what are we going to play? And I was like, I don't know. Like, let's just jam. So we started, like the quintessential, like, and the drums come in, and everyone's just jamming. And then we started to work on like songs and stuff. So what was so cool was Phil would walk in, he'd be like, oh, that's awesome, keep going, guys. And then by the end, his assistant would come in and say, she'd have like the schedule, and she'd be like, Tuesday, no one will be here at 10:30 a.m. if you guys want to come in. We're like, yep.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how it started. Then Phil had a friend that ran the Viper Room, this lady, Dale Gloria, and then he said, hey, on Mondays, it's called School Night. They have an event at the Viper Room. Maybe you guys should try and play it. And I was like, okay. So we played there. The first time we played there, we played the 6:30 slot. There was no one there.
Premium.
But Dale was there and Phil was there. And she goes, oh my God, you're incredible. I want you to play every Monday night. So all of a sudden it was like, okay.
Residency.
Okay. Got a Monday night gig now at the Viper Room, the world famous Viper Room. You know, like this is moving up.
Are you singing at this point?
I'm singing, buddy, but it is bad. It's brutal because like in the beginning it was like, okay, like we looked at the guys and I was like, I'm on guitar, you're on bass, you're on drums. So we started jamming. And then it was like, who's going to sing? And I was like, I'm going to sing. And I remember I was like, I taught myself how to sing almost like guitar. At first it was like, and then I tried to have that voice where it was like, you know, like trying to grumble along, you know. And the funniest thing is, man, is that first night at the Viper Room, I remember Phil was up there because they have a curtain that's closed when you're setting up. And he looks at me and he walks up and he goes, okay, so what are you called? And I was like, well, I just always went under my name, Jared Nichols. And he's like, okay. And he's like standing there and he's like, you know, Jared Nichols, like, ugh. And he's like, what's your middle name? I was like, James. He's like, Jared James Nichols. He goes, well, you know, a lot of great guitar players with the 3-name thing. And he's like, Kenny Wayne Shepherd, Stevie Ray Vaughan. And he's like, Jared James Nichols. He goes, all right. So then that person goes, ladies and gentlemen, Viper Room, blah, 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 blah. And I'm sitting there, dude, sweating, like I am so nervous. And he goes, please welcome to the stage, Jared James Nichols. And I was like, that's it. So it's just my full name.
Only my mom has called me that.
Exactly.
She's mad.
So, dude, this started to grow with this guy, Phil, where all of a sudden it was like, he goes, hey, you guys should record something. I have a studio. Started to record stuff. At this point, man, I had no job. I had no money. I had nothing going on. So I lived for this, right? And he called me one day and he goes, hey, dude, Aerosmith is coming in to finish their record at my studio. Because the producer, a guy named Jack Douglas, super legendary producer, he's done Cheap Trick and John Lennon, and he did all the old school Aerosmith stuff, Rocks, Toys in the Attic. He wants to finish it at my studio. I was like, that's amazing. Maybe when I'm there one day, I'll see him. Because every time I'm there, I would see like, you know, Manson or whoever was there. And it was always like, whoa, dude. You know what I mean? Crazy. Bro, 2 days later, me and my band are jamming in the room. And it's like 11:30 at night on a Monday or Tuesday or whatever. And the door cracks open. And I hear, who the hell are you, man? And I was like, and I look, and there's a silhouette of Steven Tyler. And Steven Tyler walks in, he's like, who the hell are you, dude? He's like, play that again. So I'm in there, you know, and we're jamming, you know, and I remember, dude, I was playing something, it was like, I was playing like, and he starts getting all crazy, and the band's jamming, and I was like, whoa, this is insane. Like, Steven Tyler, like, definitely had that like thing where it was like, you know, what is it called when you meet a star, where you're like starstruck.
Yeah.
I was like, this is crazy. He goes, hey man, you kick ass, man. We're making a record in the back. Why don't you come hang out? So I walk back there.
Now it's my bedtime.
Joe Perry's back there.
Sick.
All these guys are back there, and I'm like, holy smokes, this is happening. Dude, they had a spread of food back there. Yeah. And I was like, he's like, grab some food, man, grab a beer. And I'm like, okay. So next thing you know, man, he goes, dude, we're going to be here for a while, man. You come back whenever you want, brother. Next day, went back. Next day, went back. It got to the point where I was hanging out so much that, like, Steven would be like, JJ, what do you think of this mix? Let's go listen to it in your car. And I had my friend Subaru Outback. We'd sit and he would burn a CD, man, and we'd go in the Subaru Outback and listen to it and drive around, and he'd be singing along. And I'm like, I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah.
So that kind of, you know, rolled into basically from the Viper Room, meeting those guys. Then all of a sudden I got a gig like, you know, oh, there's a Sturgis motorcycle rally, wants someone to play like ZZ Top stuff. Next thing you know, that's when I met the Skynyrd guys and ZZ Top. And then it was like, it all just started to snowball. But the one thing, I never said no. So whenever there was anything, man, I mean, dude, I didn't make $1 on the road until 2019. And this all was kicking off in like 2013. So I didn't make any money. Any money that was made, I would give what I could to the bandmates, and just everything else was in the gas tank. I mean, we were sleeping at Love's truck stops. We were on the road, so it was like I didn't even really have anywhere I was living. You know, it was like I was in Hollywood. I was crashing on the one guy's floor. So it was like the more we were on the road, the better. So all of a sudden it was like, you know, it was easier for me to be out doing gigs, but we would do crazy stuff, man. We'd go, okay, we're going California to Boise, Idaho, and then Boise, Idaho to Austin, Texas. It was like insane. Now I think about it, you know, and I had no money. I didn't even have a bank card, bro. I didn't have anything. So it was like the most do-it-yourself that you could do, but it just kept snowballing until then. Like I was telling you, I got those gigs with Skynyrd, and I remember we were jamming, and my band was jamming, and all of a sudden I look on the side of the stage, and there's a guy looking all mad, and he's wearing a Lynyrd Skynyrd crew shirt, and I was like, uh-oh, did I do something wrong? And next thing you know, Gary Rosington from Lynyrd Skynyrd walks over, and then Ricky Medlock, and these guys, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're watching me. And they go, hey man. So I go to their trailer, and they're like, dude, who are you? What are you doing? And we're talking. I said, yeah, I'm actually trying to book a European tour. And they were like, oh, when are you trying to go over there? I was like, well, I got some dates. You know, a guy was helping me over there. I said, I got like 10 dates on the books. And he goes, we're going to be in Europe. Why don't you just open for us? Yep. Dude, then I went from playing these little cafes. I'm talking cafes. Like, one of the places was as big as like, it was like a walk-in closet, like straight up. And then the next night we're at the Palais des Sports in Paris, France, supporting Skynyrd. Unreal. Or we went to Switzerland or Germany. And we're playing 14 to 18,000 seat venues with Skynyrd over there. It was insanity, dude. And then me and Gary became buddies. Me and Gary Rosington, and all of a sudden it was like, I didn't realize this at the time, but you know, he wasn't supposed to be drinking, and on these shows we had a rider. So I remember him coming around, and we had a bottle of Jack. And I was like, what's up, Gary? And I'm drinking Jack Daniels. And he's like, hey, can I have one? I was like, yeah, of course, dude. Like, let's drink Jack. And then everyone's like, are you giving him whiskey? And I was like, I didn't know I was not, you know, he wasn't supposed to have it. But the best part is the last night of that tour with them, we play our set. Gary's sitting there watching us on the side of the stage, which was like surreal for me. And then he comes over and he grabs me and he gives me like a noogie. And he's like, hey, you can jam with us tonight, right? Come on. And that whole time on that tour, dude, I'm with my guys in a van, and they're going, just ride on the bus with us to me. And I was like, I can't leave my guys behind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then he goes, you come jam with us. And I was like, okay. So his tech comes over. He's like, all right, you'll do the encore. You'll play Sweet Home Alabama with him. And I was like, okay.
Sick.
And he goes, well, go in the back so you know what you're doing. So we're in this like arena, dude, and I'm sitting back there with my phone, like on bad Wi-Fi, trying to, you know, figuring that line out. So we get up there, and bro, I swear to you, I walk up there and I'm standing there, and it was like this surreal moment. And I look over and he winks at me, and then he goes, take the front. I was like, take the front? You want me to start Sweet Home Alabama in this huge like arena? And I was like, oh no. And prior to this, at that gig, I ripped off my thumbnail.
Oh,
because of the way I was just being a dumb kid. So my thumb was all messed up, and I'm like, and I do it, and everything goes right. But I was just like, oh my gosh. So we're playing the song, you know, we're playing. I'm stoked. It's like a crazy moment. My bandmates are on the side, like, you know, what's happening? And then they look at me, they're like, take the lead. And I'm like, they want me to play the solo. So then I play the solo. It was an amazing experience. One I won't soon forget, but the catalyst of this is all of a sudden this guy is calling Phil, because now Phil's kind of my manager, because, you know, he's just helping me with all this stuff. And he goes, hey, you know, my name's Dan DeVita. I'm an agent, booking agent, and I saw James Nichols. It went to your email, you know, are you representing Jared? And Phil goes, well, yes, I am. And then I get home from this run, and he's like, well, dude, I think we got you an agent, like a booking agent.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, cool. So then all of a sudden it's like, my next tour was with one of the guys from Deep Purple. It was a run across the UK into Europe.
Did you play the Deep Purple song?
No, I didn't. Could you imagine? I walked.
I got it.
And then
trading for this.
Yeah, dude. And then we did that, and then I did Like, I did all this touring. Then, like I said, I was out with Zakk Wylde and his band Black Label Society, UFO, Saxon Blue Oyster Cult. We did shows with The Who.
Insane.
What else did we do? I mean, there were so many tours I was going on because my booking agent would just be like, dude, I got you these support slot tours. And don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean we were making money, you know? I remember I would tour across Europe for $200 a show. So it was crazy, but it was,
for the whole band.
I'm onto it.
Or for the whole band?
Yeah, for the whole night.
That's crazy.
So I would come home and I would be, $15,000 in debt. And it was like, okay, how do I do this? It's like, okay, cool. I'm just going to work. I'm going to keep paying off this debt. And then eventually I was like, maybe the ends will kind of meet where, and thankfully that started to happen where it was like, okay, cool. We're going to get this gig for $1,000. Mm-hmm. And after I pay the guys, I can take 300 of it and pay off, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I guess I'm literally sitting here like living proof that because people will come up to me all the time and they'll go, man, I want to do it, but I'm just scared. I don't know first off if I have what it takes, or, I don't want to leave the town I live in. I have people that come to me and I'm in Kearney, Nebraska, and I don't want to leave the town because I don't know anyone in California and I don't have any industry. And I'm like, dude, I didn't know anyone. I didn't know the first thing about the music business, none of it. But the thing is, I just knew once I had the guitar in my hands, it was like, it felt right. Like, this is what I want to do. And then I started to like write my own music, and I had my trio. And then it was almost like I felt like I was Superman, because it was like I was standing up for the music that I loved and that I grew up loving, and it was all one and the same. And next thing you know, I'm in Europe for 100 days straight. And then we're in Egypt and Turkey, and I'm like, how did I get here? It's like, oh yeah, because of this. We're here to play. And all I can say is that anyone that's listening to this or watching or whatever, it's like, if you want to do it and you're not a complete, if you're not a horrible person and you are honest with yourself and you treat people good and you work harder than you'd ever think you had to, and you don't mind, it's not about money, it's not about any of that, it's about this, it'll happen for you too. And that's just the way it is, because now I'm so happy that I stuck with it, because here we are. This would technically be from the first tour, like 2013, right? I mean, we're talking 12 years later. And now it's to the point where it's like, now it's really fun. Because, you know what I mean? It's like you kind of just beat yourself up. And don't get me wrong, it's still work, and there's still so much left to do and so many things I want to do. But I couldn't imagine, even 5 years ago going, it's too hard, I'm going to pack it up. I'm going to get a real job. It's like, man, if you want it, you just got to go for it.
You just got to go get it. Yeah.
So that's kind of my story.
That's
long-winded,
cool,
dude.
That's awesome, man. That's an epic story.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, for the next chapter for you, like, what do you aspire to do?
I really, really want, well, first thing is I don't want to, I don't even know how to say this. Like, I don't want to get soft. I don't want to get like, I don't want it to become a thing where it's like, yeah, I'll just do what I want to do. I still love the feeling that kind of being uncomfortable with, like working hard. Like, it's almost like, I think once you get complacent, it's like with the guitar or with your career, or like, okay, I'm doing good enough now. Now I can get off the, gas pedal a little bit. That's when you kind of start to maybe let things slip a little bit. So if anything, I'm trying to double down now and just work harder than ever and really take hold of some of the advantages now that I have, which is, building up and having, a really cool kind of network of, okay, now, like I was telling you, I'll go for 7 weeks across Europe on a headline tour, and we're so excited about that. Tickets are selling great, and it's like, it's awesome, man. I'm getting ready. I'm going to release a record like I said, in April, and it's just exciting now because all those years of laying the foundation, it's like, I feel like what's next is just growing into everything I've aspired to be, if that's the right way to say it. And also collaborating. I love, songwriting. I love working with different artists. I don't want to keep anything off the table. I think it's fun to do all of it. I think it's really, it's amazing to not only work on my career, but also to, collaborate with others. I think it's awesome, man. I mean, I just love music. As long as I have a guitar in my hands, I'm going to be happy.
Yeah. Why did you choose Nashville?
Well, that's a good question, man. So like I said, I started in Boston with Berkeley, and then I went to LA. And what was happening was I've been with the same girl, Amanda, my wife now, since we were 18. So it was a very long distance relationship for many years. And when we were in Los Angeles, what we noticed was we were having a really hard time, not only financially, just with the cost of living, but also where we were living. We were living in a really rough spot where it was just a lot of crime, and it was just a really hard place to live. And what was happening was, it wasn't like we wanted to leave. We were like, oh, we got to get out of LA. But all my friends, I started to travel, and I'd come through Nashville, and I was like, well, Gibson's in Nashville. And I was like, Carter's is in Nashville. You know, there's these different hubs. And it was like Nashville felt really, really cool, because being from Wisconsin originally, it was like, it kind of felt like going home a little bit, but the weather was a little cooler, you know, a little better. And I started to talk to Amanda about it, and I started to make more friends down here. And people were like, man, you know, Tyler Bryant was one of the guys I knew forever that was living here. And I remember the day it all kind of came to a head was I got off this tour, and one of my best buddies in LA goes, hey man, I'm joining a band that's in Nashville, and I'm gonna move there. And I was like, he's like, I'm looking at this place I'm gonna live, check it out. And this would have been in 2018, so obviously a while ago now. And he was moving in to a house in East for like $690 a month. And it was like a 2-bed, 1-bath, but it was just gonna be for him. Yeah. And at that time we were paying almost $2,000 in rent in LA. And I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Things kept escalating where we were living with crime and everything. And I remember I was in Europe. A horrible event happened outside my house when I was gone. And Amanda's like, man, it's scary right now. I don't really want to leave. And I was like, let's go to Nashville. Yeah. Let's just try it. So we loaded up her car and our dog, and we moved here. But I will say, Nashville is such an incredible place. Now people ask me about it a lot. It's one of the coolest like communities of music, and just like there's just so much cool stuff going on here. A lot of people would say, oh, Nashville, you know, there's no culture in Nashville and this and that. And it's like, man, you couldn't be further wrong. It's just everything's happening in Nashville these days. So many incredible, obviously, musicians in all genres, but also like, I think it's just a great place to live. I just love it, man. And now today's like the first chilly day outside. Feels good. I won't leave here now, because I just feel like more than anywhere I've lived, and like I said, I was kind of living like a nomad a little bit for a long time. This is the first place that I've really felt like I could call home. Yeah. It's great.
I love that, man.
Yeah.
Can we get into some playing stuff?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. What are you shedding lately?
Okay, so the biggest thing I've been working on lately is, we were kind of talking about it a little bit off camera, but there's this certain like, I guess you'd call it a synergy that I try and have when I'm playing now, which is I try and approach everything musically, even it's the most simple ideas, right? So like, let's just say I'm sitting at home and I'm trying to put everything together. The biggest thing I'll try and do first off is I'll play things with intention and rhythm. I know this is like really funny, but like I'll sit and I'll play something like, the thing about it is the guitar is such an expressive instrument, and the tool of it, that I'm also trying to find, it's, and every guitar is different, the sweet spots of where things ring out. And it's almost this like interplay of pressure. So since I do play with my fingers, one of the big things for me is not making it sound like I play with my fingers all the time, if that makes sense. Like that, like kind of like that bite to it. So like sometimes I find like with this guitar, it's like you'll notice I'll be switching where I'm playing. So I'm thinking about that, but going back to that kind of that fluid thing, I think a lot of my favorite players and favorite musicians, there's just something about being fluid in your playing that is, it's almost something that's not talked about a lot, but it's more than the phrasing. It's more than going in and having licks that have a lot of vibrato or different kind of tools like legato or whatever it is. It's just trying to find that sweet spot where everything kind of feeds into itself. So when I'm sitting there shedding at home, I'll do super simple basic exercises, which are that of like letting the guitar breathe. So I'll just hit a simple lick. Let's say I'm in the key of E up here on the 12th fret, and I'll play that a bunch of different ways. Like I'll move this hand around, I'll adjust how wide my vibrato is. I'll do things now too where I'll think like almost approaching it like trying to go into like a little bit of like, okay, how can I play the same lick a bunch of different ways? Now that way I was just bending a semitone below, kind of.
Slide vibe.
Slide vibes. And then another thing that's really cool is you can do this with a pick or your fingers. It's all about how much pressure you're applying. It's almost like a drum, going back to the drum thing. It's like if I'm sitting here, I'm not even going to touch my volume or tone or anything. If I go. So almost, and I feel like you'll get this, but it's like you're approaching it almost as if it's with breaths. It's like playing guitar almost like breathing. So like it's a maybe I'm overanalyzing it, but it's a very simple thing when you hear it. But if you play a phrase and it's watching those dynamics, what notes you're accenting, which ones you're backing off on you. So I'm playing pretty like basic things, but it's like I'm trying to get the most out of them.
Yeah.
One of the things we were talking about as well is I've been doing this thing where I'm watching playbacks of shows, recent shows, right? So I have it where on the side of the stage, just on my side, I'll just let my phone run. And it's not for posting or whatever. It's like I just want to be able to hear back, a little bit of what's being amplified from the crowd, but also just kind of what's happening on stage. And it's almost like watching like a football game back, and it's like what's working and what's not. So for me, I never really have a situation where I'm playing so much that it's like, oh my goodness, I got to make sure that I'm landing this lick within the same bar or whatever. But it's more like what's working with the chord changes, what's working, especially on the improv spots, like how am I expressing myself to the fullest? And one of the biggest things that I work on a lot now too is how do I get the most from the least,
Yep.
And that's one of the big things. I don't really shed like, scales or like try and like do things like that. Now it's just all about tones, man. So like if I'm playing too and it's like I hear something and I go, I go, I don't even know, like, I know theoretically what's happening, but... And I'm hearing that, that... What is that? Did you say Lydian? But it's like, how do I make that sound, kind of work within different places where it feels right to me?
Yeah. When you're like when you're out ahead of your skis, where are the limitations in your playing that you're yeah.
Oh, buddy, yeah. So like, if it's getting there, one of the biggest things for me is, I guess, I always seem to falter back to maybe playing like melodic motifs. So if something happens on stage and I'm like, like let's say like the drummer plays over the bar and we're getting like kind of crazy. Yeah. One of the things that I'll always kind of roll back on is like, finding an idea and going back to that. So like, if we're playing as So I'll sit on things like that, but there is certain times that limitation-wise, since I don't play with a pick, I have to do certain things that maybe I've had to work up by listening to pick players, like there's these little licks I'll always do, man, like, for speed, it's almost like, just to get like a flurry of notes. It's like, I don't even know how you would know how to classify this, but it's essentially across 3 strings. Like, let's say I'm down here and I go.
That's cool. Yeah, like an arpeggiated
thing.
Yeah,
and I'll do it all over the neck, bro. So check this out.
Oh, that's cool.
If I go down, I could go. There you go, all weird.
Trick.
So I guess I'll do these little things. I'll come up with these little runs, and then I'll start to do weird stuff too, where I'll do more almost like quasi chicken picking, but not in a regular sense.
Is that on one string? Are you doing that?
Yeah, I'm doing that across stuff? 3. So it's the G. Yeah. So I guess G, B, G, E.
It's almost like a banjo roll.
It is like a banjo roll, yeah. But it's kind of fun to add in a way that's not country, Yeah. So I go like, you can do it anywhere. But those are kind of fun things. And then I'll always, one of the things I'm trying to work on more too, I mean, it is kind of more country, but is incorporating like cool bends in different So this is like super country.
Oh yeah.
Do you know that bend?
Yeah, totally. yeah. Yep.
But I'll try and do that stuff in like different ways. Like if we're playing over like a big blues rock thing, like the band, and we're playing, So it sounds
so cool that it kind of puts it on the back side too. When you do the chicken picking thing beforehand, it like,
I know, isn't that weird?
Yeah, it's cool.
I used to always do like I don't know. I mean, I would never, ever, ever consider myself like any sort of country guitar player.
But it's in there. Yeah,
it's in there, dude.
Mason flavor.
Exactly. It's just those little percussive things. I guess I love that. Yeah. Another thing I always try and do with the guitar, like I'll do them on the bottom, I guess, this middle pickup kind of messes with it, but, if you're having those snappiness,
Ooh, that's cool.
Kind of cool.
Oh, can you show me that syncopation? That you're getting a lot of speed out of that. What's the technique in the right hand for that?
For that one?
Oh, it's the same one.
That's the same one. And on that, another thing I always do, man, now you're making me like get all excited, but if I use, let's say I'm in any of these keys, I'll use open strings all the time. So check this out, like key of G. One of the things I noticed playing in a trio was I wanted to have a fatter sound than just playing single notes. And if I was playing something really, 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 really simple, I almost think like, what would Billy Gibbons do, right? So it's like having an open G, like a... So if I'm playing a riff and I go... But then I started to notice, well, what if I like kind of hammer on and play off of those... And then you start to add a little speed that. So, like, I do that all over. If I'm in the key of E, I'll do this, like, little drone thing with a high E, you know, like, I just love the way that sounds, you know, over riffs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just do so much. I think with my guitar playing, it's more like the rub.
Yeah.
There's more rub than anything.
Yeah, 100%. Does
that make sense?
Feel. It's
Yeah.
all feel. Yeah. That's so cool, man.
So it's cool.
What's the so that's cool. What's the next frontier for you in your guitar playing? Like, what's the thing that you're like?
Well, it's a great question. You know, the one thing I feel like always is, first off, like, there's so many amazing guitar players, and there always has been, whether it's from, you know, back in the day with the Les Pauls and Chet Atkins to, you know, the Blues Boom to the Shredders. There's always been, but now there's so much information and there's so many things that, you know, we can absorb on a daily basis and go online and do all that stuff. The biggest thing for me that I want to work on is to continue to develop, and it sounds funny, but my own identity on the guitar and my own kind of voice. And the one thing that has always just shook me about guitar playing is just the simpleness and the feel of, you know, I was just with Bonamassa the other day, and Joe has this uncanny ability, and it's like, it's not even about his fast stuff. He picked up like a Strat, and I swear, man, he played something. He was just like, but it was the way he played it, like the authority. So the one thing I always want to work on with my playing is, I don't want to be faster. I don't care about, you know, unlocking this new kind of course, I'm all about new techniques and stuff like that. But it's like, I just want to figure out how to make this, you know, sound like me, if that makes sense.
Totally.
And like,
totally makes sense.
Continue to take, of course, my weirdness style, but carry on the ball of that sound. And with guitar especially, to me, it's all about that, just that feel thing, man. I just want to continue to go down that. It's like, I'm such a big Jeff Beck fan that when I would hear beautiful Jeff Beck stuff, it was like the way he could take a melody, man, and he could just take a melody and just make it completely his own. I just love it, you know. So I can't tell you the next technique I'm going to work on. All I can say is I'm just going to try and get deeper on me.
Yeah, I love that, man.
Yeah.
I have a quick game, and then we can wrap up here. So I have some pieces of paper here that have some names on them of people that you have interacted with in your career. I want to hear a story.
Okay.
About each of them.
That's amazing. Let's do it.
Want to draw a card?
Oh yeah, let me draw a card. Slash. Oof. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So it's great. So the first time I met Slash was it was a Thanksgiving. I was in LA, and our friends invited us to, like, I can't remember what it was called, but it was in like I think it was in Malibu. It was like for a Thanksgiving dinner. Mm-hmm. And dude, we roll into the restaurant, and who's sitting there in the middle of their Thanksgiving dinner? Slash, right? And my friend goes, "Dude, it's Slash," and I'm like, "Shh." Dude, he's chilling like with his dad and his girl and, you know, whatever. He walks up, "Hey man, can we get a picture?" And I was like, "Oh no." And Slash was like, "No, dude, leave me alone." You know, he was like eating dinner. So then I was like, oh, that was horrible. But then the epicness of Slash was, I remember this would have been in 2020, I got invited to do a show. It was in Anaheim, and it was like a big jam for Gibson, but it was Slash, and it was the guys from Cheap Trick and Peter Frampton and Billy Gibb, all these guys, right? But I remember Slash being so cool to me, dude. Like, so cool. And, like, I was a little nervous, you know, because we played Last Child by Aerosmith together. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, man, this is going to be cool. But, like, he gave me that look like, what's up, dude? You know, like, he was cool.
Yeah.
And every time I've seen Slash, total gentleman, he still loves it. And I think that's the coolest part about Slash. I mean, I have a million Slash stories of seeing him when I was younger, you know?
Yeah.
And the inspiration, like, Zakk Wylde, Slash, like, seeing those guys when I was a kid, it was almost like seeing, like, Spider-Man or Superman in the guitar form, because you're like, anything's possible. Look at that Slash, you know what I mean?
It's also such a crazy era too, because before you wouldn't have, like, there wasn't the internet where you could see a ton of, like, interviews and content about these people. They were, like, only on the magazines, and they were superheroes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Slash. Nothing but love and respect for Slash, man.
Super cool.
Yeah.
You want to draw another one?
Yeah, of course I do. Who do we got? Billy Gibbons.
There you go.
I got great Billy Gibbons stories, like many people do.
Yeah.
My best Billy Gibbons story was, there's been a lot of them, but let me think. Okay, so I was with Cesar from Gibson, and he goes, I can't remember what we were doing, but he goes, hey, man, it was the middle of the day, and we were over at Marathon Music Works. We were by there, and he's like, dude, Billy Gibbons is in a bar over here. Should we go over there? And I was like, yeah, let's go. And Billy started chatting with me, and it was like a really chill bar. But he was like, do you like grapefruit beer? And I was like, I don't know. I've never really had one. 7 grapefruit beers later. But, dude, during that time, what I'm getting at is the conversations we had. Like, he was just like, whenever I talk to a guy like Billy or any of these kind of legends, like whether it's, you know, any of the old school guys like Buddy Guy or Jeff Beck or any of these people, it's like you're hearing it straight from the horse's mouth. So when he was telling me the story about Pearly Gates and this one time when he was trying Pearly Gates out and he was comparing it to all these other Les Pauls and what he loved about back then when he was recording, you know, Tres Hombres and they were using this sound and I'm just sitting there and I'm just like a kid looking at Santa Claus, like, you know, you are real. But Billy is the coolest guy, as we all know. Another really funny one with Billy, which I did this other event and I was jamming and I jammed with Billy. And before the show, he walks up, he's like, hey, Jared. And I was like, what's up? He's like, do me a favor, man. And he's like being like all like chill. He's like, go plug my guitar and make sure it works. And I was like, sure. So I go, dude, and it's like, I open the case, and his case looks like it came from, like, a pack, like it was packed with so much stuff. I've never seen a guitar case. It was like kind of like a travel, like a SKB case, packed with stuff. Slides, dice, picks, chargers, strings, wire cutters, like sunglasses, like all this shit in these cases. And I'm like, why is there all this stuff in these cases? So I get the guitar out. It was an SG.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. He like ripped the back of it off, so it looked all funky.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I go and I plug it in, and it's got like 7s or 8s or whatever.
Yeah.
So I remember I was really respectful. I just plugged it in, and I went. And I remember I just went like. And I looked at Billy, and he goes. Yeah. So I was like, okay, cool.
I'm cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
I put it on the stand. Like, I was like, hey, brother, it's ready for you whenever. He's like, come here. And I was like, what's up? And he's wearing like a trench coat and he just goes like this and he like moves his arm in a fucking hot sauce bottle.
No.
I swear to God. And he's like, here, put that on your food later. And it was a Billy Gibbons hot sauce, dude. And I was just like, now I've met and hung and ran with Billy a lot. And I'm just like, this is like, you're like a comic book character.
Yeah,
bro.
you're
like
caricature.
Yes. How? And like the hot sauce comes out, dude. And he's just like, put that on your food later. And I still have the Billy Gibbons hot sauce that he gave me that night. But what a legend, man. I mean, I still listen to like, there's something about that dude and like.
Yeah, he's got the sauce.
It's
literally.
the sauce, dude,
Yeah,
in more ways than one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my Billy story.
You want to do one more?
Yeah, come on. Steve Vai. Oh, this is a good story.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay, so Steve Vai is obviously incredible. I remember I got invited to jam at an event that was happening in LA, and Steve was doing an event. I think it was like for a charity where he was jamming with all these artists and guitar players doing this thing. One of my friends goes, "Dude, you want to jam with Steve?" I'm like, "Sure, I'd love to." This is when I had the guitar with ripped out pickup. So like, I was like, okay, so I roll up, dude. It was Steve. I can't remember. It wasn't Billy Sheehan on bass, but it was like some Marco Miniman or somebody crazy on bass, and Kenny Aronoff on drums. And I've jammed with Kenny a bunch, and Kenny's killer. And I roll up, and Steve's like, "What's up, man?" And I didn't know Steve, but my friend knew him at this point. So I was like a little bit like, "Hey, dude." And he's like, "What are we jamming?" And I was like, "Anything you want." I didn't know what else to say. He said, "Anything I want?" And I was like, "Sure." So he starts with this groove, and it was like. And also, and I remember I was doing this thing where I was going like, right away in the beginning, I was going, and I was going, like really just like simmer stuff, right? And immediately Steve looks at me like this, like, and I felt like I was in that Crossroads movie, dude. And I'm playing through a Blues Junior, bro. Yeah, this sick. Epiphone guitar, all Frankenstein out through a Blues Junior. And it was pretty snappy. It sounded like a little snapping turtle, you know? I was doing that. It had that grit on it. And all of a sudden, Steve, he's going like this. And he looks back, and he has this huge rig. And he goes back, and he's turning up his stuff. And then he goes up to me, and he goes... And then we do this 25-minute long, like, back and forth thing, right? And every time, this is how much of a jerk kid I was. Every time he would step out and start to do the Steve Vai stuff, I would come back in with a... like some crap, you know, and bring him back in like a, and I'd do some stuff, you know, but like really nasty, and then he would just be like, oh, and then he'd come back, and we had this amazing conversation, and then at the end, he was like obviously super cool or whatever, but he's like, "Damn, dude," he was like, "You're fucking awesome," whatever, you know? Yeah. And then after that, I saw him out and about a few times, like right away after that. And he's like, "I won't forget that jam, dude." But it was really cool, man.
You had the duel.
I had a duel with Steve, which was really cool. I mean, he was one of the only guys, though. There's been a few guys now, like jamming with like Tommy Emmanuel or some of these players. Steve Vai, when he plays guitar, like when you're sitting with him watching his fingers.
Yeah, he's like a viper.
Bro, it's a great way to put it. He's like a viper. Yeah. He's like a snake on it. You know what I mean? And the way he's doing his vibrato and stuff, he's on another level of another level. Yeah, you know? 100%. There's guitar players, there's great guitar players, there's incredible guitar players. Then there's people like Tommy Emmanuel and Steve Vai and some of these other players that are just like, they're doing their own thing. Yeah. You know?
100%.
It's amazing.
Well, this was so fun, man. Where can people? Brother. Thanks for sharing those stories. Yeah, dude. Where can people follow up with more of the things that you're doing? I know you have a record coming out. Want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah. So I got a record coming out. It's going to be out at the end of April of this next year, 2026. But if you want to follow anything from me, tour dates, where I'll be, I'm always doing like different events and cool clinics and stuff like that alongside of being on tour. Go to, if you're on social media, of course, Facebook or Instagram, that's just at Jared James Nichols. Or you can just go straight to jaredjamesnichols.com. Everything's there. And thanks for hanging out and listening to all my stories.
Dude, this was epic.
Thanks, brother.
You're the best.
Thanks,
you.
Dude. Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.